Don't skip this video. Because what I'm about to tell you in the next few minutes is something many people spend their entire lives trying to understand. And during all that time, they keep paying the price. They lose respect, lose their voice, lose their inner peace. Not because they're weak, not because they're not smart enough, and not because they lack value, but because no one ever truly taught them this. And that's exactly why this video is different from most of the things you've watched before. This is not the kind of motivational content that makes you feel good for a few minutes, only for everything to go back to the way it was. This is the truth. A truth that, once you finally understand it, you will never allow people to treat you the same way again. When this video ends, the way you walk into a room will be different. The way you speak to people will be different. And most importantly, the way people treat you will change too. But stay until the end. Because the most important part, the thing that ties everything together, I'm saving that for the end of this video. And if you miss that part, nothing else will truly make sense. If you've ever felt like you're always the one giving in, always the one enduring, always the one being overlooked, comment the number 1. I want you to think about someone in your life. Someone who seems to have boundaries no one dares to cross. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's someone in your family. Or maybe just someone you met once somewhere. They're not the loudest person in the room. Not the most aggressive. And not the kind of person constantly trying to prove themselves. But there's something about them that makes people automatically become more serious around them. People choose their words more carefully in front of them. People behave differently around them. And maybe you've asked yourself before, what do they have that I don't? I used to wonder the same thing. I used to think that if you wanted respect, you had to be more outspoken, more cold, more dominant, more successful. But then I realized, none of that was the real reason. Because the truth is, people do not treat you based on who you are. They treat you based on what you allow. Listen to that again. People treat you based on what you allow. Every time someone crosses a line with you and you stay silent, you are teaching them that it's acceptable. Think about the last time someone did something that made you uncomfortable. Maybe they spoke to you in a disrespectful tone. Maybe they crossed one of your boundaries. Maybe they made you feel uncomfortable, but you stayed silent anyway. And do you know what most people tell themselves in moments like that? Just let it go. It's not worth making a big deal out of it. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. They probably didn't mean it. So you laugh it off. You swallow the feeling. You keep acting normal, even though something inside you doesn't feel right. And in that exact moment, something very important happens. You just gave that person a piece of information. And that information is, you can treat me this way, and nothing will happen. The scariest part is that most of this happens completely unconsciously. People are always reading each other. We are constantly observing what is allowed, what is not allowed, where the other person's boundaries are. And when you continuously ignore the things that hurt or bother you, people begin to see that as your standard. And slowly, it becomes a pattern. One person treats you that way. Then another person does the same. And eventually, you start feeling like you're always the one, giving in more, tolerating more, giving more than you ever receive back. There's an image that completely changed the way I see myself. Every house has two things related to temperature: a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermometer only does one thing. It reads the temperature of the room. If the room is cold, it shows cold. If the room is hot, it shows hot. It is completely controlled by the environment around it. But a thermostat is different. It doesn't ask what the room feels like. It decides what the room will feel like, and then makes it happen. And most people who constantly get overlooked are living like thermometers. They walk into a room and immediately start reading everyone else's energy. If someone is distant, they shrink themselves. If someone seems upset, they start over-explaining. If someone is disappointed, they instantly feel guilty. They constantly adjust themselves, just to make other people comfortable, even when it completely drains them. But people with a truly strong presence are different. They are like thermostats. They do not absorb every emotion in the room. They do not let other people's moods determine their worth. They walk in and naturally set the standard. Without raising their voice. Without being aggressive. Without trying to appear intimidating. Simply because they are grounded within themselves. And when someone is truly grounded inside, the world begins to adjust to them. I want to tell you something that many people misunderstand. People who constantly try to please everyone are not weak. Most of the time, they are the people who are the kindest, the most emotionally aware, the most caring. They don't want to disappoint anyone. They don't want conflict. They don't want to be the reason someone feels uncomfortable. But something unfortunate happens because of that. When you are always available for everyone, when you have no boundaries, when you always say sure. Even when you actually want to say no, you unintentionally make yourself seem less valuable in the eyes of others. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because human beings naturally value things that have limits. Think about water. If you were walking through a dry desert, and someone handed you a bottle of water, how valuable would that feel? But if you were standing in the middle of a heavy rainstorm, water would be everywhere. And suddenly, it would no longer feel precious. That's what happens when you become too available. Too easy to say yes. Too willing to sacrifice yourself. People begin to take your presence for granted. And that's why boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are what create value. If you've always been the person who gives in, the one who tries to please everyone, comment the number 2. Now I want to give you something truly practical. Something you can start using today. I call it the 5-second rule of self-respect. The rule is simple. When someone says or does something that makes you uncomfortable, you have exactly 5 seconds to respond. Not 5 minutes. Not 5 days later when you're lying in bed replaying the conversation in your head. 5 seconds. Because after those 5 seconds, your brain starts negotiating. It will say, maybe I misunderstood. They probably didn't mean it. It'll be awkward if I say something. Just let it go. And then the moment passes. You stay silent. But that uncomfortable feeling stays with you. It follows you for the rest of the day. It stays in your mind when you try to sleep at night. And the worst part is, the other person may not even realize they crossed your boundary. But if you respond within those first 5 seconds, everything changes. You don't need to argue. You don't need to get angry. You don't need to act aggressive. You simply need to calmly say, that made me uncomfortable. I need you to speak to me differently. What do you mean by that? That's it. Calm. Clear. No drama. And do you know what happens? People begin to see you differently. Because now they understand. You notice things. You have boundaries, and you are willing to protect them. People often misunderstand the kind of person no one dares to mess with. They think it's someone who is always ready to fight back. Always has the perfect comeback. Always carries that energy of, try me. But that's not it. Truly strong people are often very quiet. They hear negative things, without falling apart. Not because they are emotionless, but because those words no longer reach the important place inside them. They get rejected, but they do not see it as proof that they are worthless. They get misunderstood, but no longer feel the need to explain themselves to everyone. They do not constantly need to prove they are worthy of being liked. That is what real confidence looks like. Not a performance, but inner stability. And you do not achieve that by pretending to be cold. You do not achieve it by acting like you don't care. You achieve it by consistently respecting yourself. Every time you protect your boundaries, you become a little stronger. Every time you say what needs to be said instead of staying silent, you become a little more grounded. Every time you choose your own peace, instead of trying to please everyone, you grow a little more. And one day, you realize you no longer need to pretend to be strong. Because for the first time in your life, you truly are strong. But this is the most important part of all. Everything I've said so far will change nothing if you do not deal with what's happening underneath it all. Because most people who constantly get treated badly carry a hidden belief inside them. A belief that sometimes even they are unaware of. It sounds something like this: I should be grateful they're still here. If I speak up, they'll leave. Maybe I don't deserve better treatment. That is the real root of the problem. Because you can learn every communication strategy in the world. But if deep down, you still believe you are not valuable enough, you will always find reasons to stay silent. You will always justify other people's behavior. You will always accept less than what you deserve. So before the strategies, before the 5-second rule, before everything else, you need to sit down and be honest with yourself. What do you truly believe you deserve? Not what you tell other people, but what you genuinely believe when you are alone. Because that belief becomes the limit for how the world will treat you. If you believe you are not worthy of respect, you will tolerate disrespect. If you believe you must sacrifice your peace just to keep people in your life, you will continue to suffer in silence. But when you begin to believe that you deserve to be heard, you deserve respect, you deserve relationships that do not drain you, everything starts to change. At that point, setting boundaries no longer feels terrifying. Saying no no longer fills you with guilt. Speaking up no longer makes you afraid of losing people. Because for the first time, your actions align with the value you see in yourself. So before you leave this video, remember one thing. People will always treat you based on what you allow. And the moment you begin respecting yourself, the world will begin to do the same. If you watched until the end, comment the number 9.